NIL Now with Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
If you want to learn more about name, image, and likeness, you need to go to The Source. The NIL Now podcast from Headline Studio and Reddit highlights the biggest storylines with comments from key guests in the college and high school NIL space.
NIL is not a cherry on top. It needs to be thought about as a part of these young men and women's future to, further their careers. You should be able to leave college with something.
Subscribe to NIL Now on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
It is time for another Terry's Talkin podcast. I'm David Campbell, host, sports manager at cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. And joining me, fresh off a weekend at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, is Terry Pluto, award-winning columnist from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We got a lot to talk about today, Terry. We're actually taping this on a Monday so that we can get out in front of game 2 a little bit. But we're going to get into some Cavs. We got some Guardians we'll get into. Interesting weekend for them. And I have a Browns question I want to ask you about Deshaun Watson. And we got some good letters. So, Terry, you wrote a lot about the Cavs over the weekend after they dropped game 1 of the series, 101-97 to the Knicks. And one of the things I love about doing this with you is you're such a student of the game of basketball. I could just envision you sitting there watching the game, just they should be doing this, and they should be doing this, and they should be doing this. And so I just wanted to kind of see what were the scribbles in your notebook about how they can fix this going into game 2 on Tuesday night? Let's get into it.
Well, the interesting thing to me is the fact that the Knicks would really rebound and crash the boards was like no secret. It'd be the same thing like the Knicks knowing that Donovan Mitchell is going to be a pain to you got to be all over Mitchell. Well, they try to be all over Mitchell, but basically, in the end, I'm sure the Knicks' goal is hold them under 100 points will win. And the Cavs, I thought, were just derelict in how to deal with the onslaught on the boards from the Knicks. And, people want to point to the big man. Okay, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to give you just 2 numbers right off the start. One is the number 25, and the other is the number 13. The number 25 is how many rebounds Evan Mobley and Jared Allen had. 13 is all the rest. And if you look at how the Knicks play, is they have guys coming everywhere, especially their guards, rebounding. And their guards really help on the defensive boards. And the Cavs guards, I found this to be almost a statistical impossibility. I don't know how anybody could be on a floor for 43 minutes at an NBA game and not get a rebound. And who was that, Mr. Campbell?
Darius Garland?
Garland.
Jeez.
I mean, and I like Darius too, but how does that happen? And just for the heck of it, I kind of rewatched rewatched the whole second half and a little more just to see. And you could just see the guards for the Knicks really helping out, coming from everywhere. So it wasn't just that they were more physical, the different players. It was kind of a mode of attack. And if you look at that too, so for example, Josh Hart, who's a 6'4" guard/forward, he had 10 rebounds. Remember, I mentioned the whole rest of the team at 13 for the Cavs. But you look at things like that. Mitchell had 5 rebounds, and that's about his average. Karis LeVert, look, I wrote this one play down. He has a wide open layup on the right side, David, and he goes up with his left hand and kind of bangs it off the rim. It was so strange. I don't know what he was looking at. Well, the whole game, I don't know what he's looking at. So, first of all, here's a weird stat. Coming into that night, LeVert had played 9 NBA playoff games, and any guess on how many points he averaged in those games?
12?
20.
Really?
20. I mean, you would have guessed like 12 would be his average. 20 over 2 years. So he's out there for 18 minutes. He goes 1 of 7. He gets a rebound. Chetty Osman played more small forward. Whatever, 19 minutes, he gets 1 rebound. And so my point is, if you want to improve your rebounding, if I'm JB Bickerstaff, I'm pounding them on those stats and saying, yes, they need Mobley and Allen to be stronger, but you guys got to get in there and help.
So I was going to ask you about this, Terry. The game is Saturday night, and Sunday there's kind of some R&R, probably some film watching for the Cavaliers. They got to get tougher, as you say, around the rim, rebounding, boxing guys out. Do they do that today? I mean, can you, like, you don't want to beat your team up going into game 2, but like these guys got to get a body on everybody. Like, and you said everybody has to rebound. Can you do this in practice without beating everybody up for tomorrow
No,
night?
you don't do it in practice. You just say, look, guys, this is how it is. You show them on film. Because the last thing you need is somebody stepping on somebody's foot in practice or whatever. No, you don't do that. This is a test of wills. All the stuff that JB talks about, character, grit, the junkyard dog mentality, the whole thing. And when I'm looking at this too, and I see, some of the stats, like Evan Mobley. Mobley was really a disappointment. Early in the game, he misses a shot, gets his own rebound, and then spins and dunks it with his left hand. And I said, "No, that's how you do it." But the rest of the game, other than maybe one or two other plays, and this is the first time I've written this about Mobley, he was soft. He was getting pushed around. Now, here's another thing that's kind of hard to believe. He's out there for 38 minutes, and he doesn't attempt a free throw. And I don't remember. I mean, sure, there was some things where I'm sure he was shoved or whatever, but it wasn't like I remember him getting decked and there was no whistle. He was, to me, was backing away. Jared Allen, he was fouled once. So he was 6 of 8. I've always been, if you throw to Allen more near the rim, but there were a couple plays when I was looking at the tape again. He gets the ball 5 feet from the basket, and he just turns and whirls it to somebody for a corner 3. I am sick of that. Yes, I know 3 points is better than 2, but 2 points is better than none. And Jared Allen within 5 feet of the basket, yes, there's sort of somebody on his back. He makes close to 70% of his shots. Shoot the ball. Go up tough. And I think that's what I would do. I would pull these tapes out, of shots that are near the rim where they went up soft, shots near the rim where they didn't take. And also just you could put together a 5-minute collage of Knicks guards just crashing in to get rebounds. I'd say, this is where we start right here on this stuff. I mean, there's other things. But JV himself says if they don't improve on the boards, they lose.
Period. End of story. Yeah. So Terry, it was really interesting because everything that we said and others said was going to happen happened, right? The Knicks dominated on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks had the advantage on the bench. The one thing that I wanted to see how it played out was, if you're a Cavs fan watching that game, Cavs fans are just like, hey, it's the playoffs. Like, where is the grit?
Yeah.
And Ashley Bastock, our colleague who was covering the game with Chris Fedor on Saturday night, wrote a piece about like the grittiest play of the night was by Donovan Mitchell jumping into the stands. And probably the second grittiest play of the night was him going belly down on the floor to push that ball out to Jetty Osman for the layup on that.
I might even argue that was the first. I mean, the jumping,
yeah, you might even be able to flip those.
The high jump is kind of dramatic, but that was kind of, I'm going there and here I go. But that, if you played any basketball at all, when you said, I'm going to go head first on a hardwood floor, and in the fourth quarter, you're going to feel that one. You really do know that. And you're correct. Those are the two toughest plays, and not a number of others come to mind. I will say this. There was one where Okoro got run over by Randall, and he knew that was going to be bad, and it was. But there weren't too many others.
Did you see the amount of grit that you wanted to see out of that Cavs team on Saturday night? I guess my second question to you is, should we have expected to see what we saw? Because, this is the youngest roster in the NBA. These guys have never done this before, and they've never played in a playoff game. In the playoffs, it is a battle. It is a never-ending 48-minute battle. Elbows, arms, flying in the lane. Like, it is a different animal. And I don't know that the Cavs were ready for that, but I don't know that they could have been ready for that, or could they?
They could have been more ready for that, but I don't particularly blame the coaches on this. I'm sure that was drilled to them. They probably figured it would be like some of the other games with the Knicks and didn't realize that the Knicks would take it to a higher level. Garland, to me, first of all, I think Garland is a key to the series for them. He could score a lot more. When I was looking at the tape, there are a lot of mid-range shots available to him. Sometimes he didn't take them. Other times he was just ignored because Donovan was trying to, basically carry the team on his back because he realized the lads were not exactly, as you said, they were not vying for the Junkyard Dog Award here. I mean, they just were not. They were kind of cowering in the corners like puppies, some of them. So as you mentioned, he went over the scorer's table. He's on the floor. And to his credit, he came up with 5 rebounds. And I remember at one point he speared one with one hand. I thought it was a showy play, but I think he just wanted them to say, look, this is what you do, man. Go get it. And so to that extent, Garland, this surprised him. When he was bringing the ball up the floor, they double-teamed him. And he had 5 turnovers, and how many assists did he have? 1 more than you did the other night.
Really? Wow.
1. And I just think that he can break through some of those double teams. He's been shown able to do the pass or see it coming, handle it better. That, I think, was the big surprise. I don't remember the other Knicks games where they trap Garland like that. Because you would think, do you really want to trap Garland? Because then he might throw the ball to Mitchell. But they decided to do that. Basically, they're kind of trying to take Garland out of it. And he was 7 of 13 from the field. And there could be some more like floaters and things like that we didn't see from him. They took the lob away when Garland was in the pick and roll. If they didn't trap him, they took it away from Allen. That's a favorite play of theirs. But guess what that does? That leaves him open from anywhere from 12 to 6 feet for whatever kind of shot he wants to take. And so he could hurt them doing that.
Well, Terry, I'll tell you what, I want to talk about Isaac Okoro real quick, and then I want to get your thoughts on what they should do with the bench. So I think one of the biggest shots that we're going to see in game 2 tomorrow night is going to be early when Isaac Okoro gets his first corner 3 attempt. And if that first one goes in and he's feeling like he can get the ball to go through the basket, I think he's going to shoot more, and he's going to shoot more freely. The other night we saw he got off to a rough start, and he was hesitating, and he started putting the ball on the ground to get to the rack after he wasn't taking the threes because he didn't believe he could make them. And I think the Cavs, when you see the Cavs throwing to him in the corner and he's hitting shots, they're scoring 120 points usually when he gets it going. So is that true? Do you think that should be something we should watch?
Everybody's going to hate me on this one. Number one is just because you're open doesn't mean you have to shoot it. The NBA has fallen into, no matter who's open on a 3-point line, heave it up there. If you haven't played in 3 weeks and you got a bad knee and you're not a great shooter to begin with, and you're really out there to defend, just because you're open, you don't have to. I was sitting with Tom Withers and Brian Dulick from AP, and I'm like, he doesn't have to shoot it. I remember Lenny Wilkins when he would, when I would watch practice in the old days at the NBA, he would say 2 things. Sometimes he would say pull a guy privately, just because you're open, you don't have to shoot it. You don't feel good about the shot, you don't have to take it because you're out here to do X, Y, and Z. And the other thing, there was another time like Okoro kind of bolted to the middle, and I think Garland or somebody just fires this pass into him. Even if he catches it 3 feet from the basket, there's 2 big guys there. He's not going to make a shot. And just because you're open, seemingly, doesn't mean you have to throw the pass to him. You have to take to account the player. And if you're relying on Isaac Okoro to make threes to beat the Knicks, you will lose. It's not his game. You've got 4 other guys out there. Figure this out. And by the way, when Isaiah a couple times actually kind of dribbled the ball, he created a little bit of scrambling on defense and led to another pass where a guy was open, that kind of stuff. So I disagree on that. It's just not, not there. I mean, he took 6 shots and 4 of them were 3-pointers. And by the way, he took as many 3-pointers as there is Garland. So there you are. Now, if you want that shot to fall, then you have to play Danny Green. See if he'll make it. See if they'll cover him. See if he'll make it. They're afraid of Danny Green on defense because he's still he and Ricky Rubio are in the same situation of coming off major ACL knee surgeries, and they're probably not 100%. But if we're talking about the 7 empty minutes that Dean Wade gave them, he went 0 for 1. Rebound. I mean, some of these numbers are deceiving where they go and they got outscored by 14 points when he's on the floor. It wasn't all him because unfortunately he was out there with Karis LeVert, who was running around making turnovers and just taking stupid shots. So that was a really bad combo. But they're going to have to figure this out. But Green would be somebody I would try, knowing that there's defensive limitations, if you think it's so critical to make that corner 3. But my argument would be also if you spread out your 2 guards, you have them basically on the opposite ends of the floor, you can do a lot of just ball movement and stuff like that. I was waiting for the high-low thing with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And that has worked against other teams. They didn't do it. Remember this, Julius Randle's out there in the second half. That knee was bothering him. He said he was good in the first half, and he was there. And, go at him. And
he was feeling it too. He was sucking air when he was on the bench. He's not conditioned to the way he wanted to be.
Because he didn't have a full court drill. He just played after I think he missed 3 weeks.
Yeah, and that won't be much better tomorrow night. You wouldn't think he would be getting shape.
If anything, that ankle could be worse. So there are a lot of things to exploit. Some of their guys didn't show up. R.J. Barrett was 2 for 12. He looked lost. Quigley, who's a really good scorer off the bench, he went 0 for 5. A lot of people were blinded by the bright lights. But David, I got a question. Was there a rule before the game that the Cavs are not allowed to double team Brunson? Was that? Did I miss that?
No
double teaming of Brunson allowed.
That is not a rule. So that's what you want to see tomorrow night. More double teaming,
just like trap his butt.
Blitzing him when he comes over half court.
Yeah, just go out, let him throw the ball to R.J. Barrett. Let's see what he does. I know one thing. Brunson's got more. I love his game. He's got all these shots. He's got medium shots and fallaways and all kinds of stuff. I remember. Yeah, he's everything. He's left-handed. By the way, the Knicks cheat. They have 2 left-handed players. The Cats keep playing him to the right side. There was a key part late in the game, and Brunson's bringing the ball up. He's left-handed, and he passes it to somebody, goes right back to Brunson, and there's Chetty sitting on his right hand, and sure enough, he goes right around him, makes a layup. I'm sure they drilled into all these guys. He's left-handed.
JB said it after the game. He said among the things we screwed up, we were playing guys to the wrong strength of hand.
Yeah,
he just flat out said it after the game.
It doesn't change. Of course, Lenny Wilkins, the thing when he played, he was a left-handed guard. He was a little like Brunson, really. He had all kinds of shots, and he said, well, you know what? They would always play to the right anyway, or I set them up to the right and go back to the left.
Yep. Well, those are all good ideas, Terry. So I want to get real quick. We got to take a break here. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, JB talked after the game about, he was talking about the bench, and he's like, well, we're going to go to one guy. If that doesn't work, we're going to go to another guy. If that doesn't work, we're going to go to another guy until we find someone who can give us what we need. So, Terry, you have the JB Bickerstaff coaching hat on here. How are you going to structure this rotation tomorrow? Who do you want to see coming off the bench early? You were just talking about Dean Wade, who was one of the first off the bench the other night. Who are you going to give first crack to here?
Well, I would play LeVert again, as bad as he was. So that would be one. Secondly, I would go to Dean Wade. I would go to Danny Green rather than Dean Wade. I would try that. Because if Wade had gone in, he had 1 rebound in 7 minutes. Either that or you pull Wade over and go, you better get some rebounds your first couple minutes in there, you're coming out. Maybe you give these guys just a couple things to do when they go in. Chetty, we had good Chetty the other day. He always scares me. So, but if I really want it, I don't like how it's going early, and I don't think they're competing. I'm putting the original drunk yard dog in the game. That's Lamar Stevens. If I see a Coral just kind of looking shaky again, and that, because I did not think Coral's defense was all that great in that game, I go with Lamar Stevens. So that would be So I'm looking for something different. I'm looking at Green and Stevens, and probably Levert would be my 3.
And
But
would
the
you put
problem
Lamar
is,
Stevens on Brunson? Because Jetty
I
gave
would. Why
him,
not?
yeah, I mean, he's got a few inches on him. He's
Why
got
not?
some length. Yeah, might be worth a
Foul. You
shot.
got fouls. Let's foul him a few times. Remember, and you are allowed. You made it clear that rule, no turbo teaming Brunson, that's just an urban legend. You are allowed to do it.
That is true. So,
If
Terry,
the other guys start to make some shots, fine. Then you could go back to one-on-one or whatever you want to do.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a break here in a second. I just want to throw this out. It makes me crazy. You've seen this for years, Terry, and I want to ask you about it. So Brunson, the other night, gets his second foul
Yep.
early in the first half, and they pull him.
Mm-hmm.
His second foul. And I never understand. I mean, these coaches know way more about basketball than I ever will. But they sat him. I think he played 21 points. He had 21 points in 21 minutes in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
But in the first half, he played just 9 minutes. He picked up his
Mm-hmm.
third foul with 9:12 in the second quarter.
Yep.
And they had him sit on the bench. You know how many fouls Jalen Brunson finished with the other night?
This was a 3.
3.
Yeah.
And these coaches pull these guys out. I mean, it's the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to bench, and this happens across the league. You're going to bench one of your best offensive threats for 8-10 minutes in the first half because you're worried about them. I mean, they could foul out with 8 or 10 minutes left in the game, and you would be in the same boat if you bench him. What's your thoughts on coaches sitting guys with 2 or even 3 fouls in the first half?
I don't mind pulling them with 2 early. And here's why. Because I was probably going to get them some rest anyway late in the first quarter. So, all right, we're going to sit down here. I go in earlier with Quickly or whoever I want to go to. But then when I roll you back in for your usual thing in the second quarter with 9 minutes to go or whatever, you're in for the rest of the half. That's all. We just gave you a longer rest. In the meantime, just let it sit in you that we got to watch this foul thing. That's all. And so, but then he picked the third up, as you said there. And I know you kind of watch it. He's watching the scoreboard. He's probably thinking, this thing's close. And I don't even have Brunson out there. So I'm going to be more cautious. That's probably the other thing that's going on. Had the Cavs been up by 10, Thibodeau probably would have played it differently.
Yeah, every game is different. It's just, you're like, all right.
But you could do that easily. You pull him out with 2. So he sits from, say, I think that was in the middle of the first quarter, somewhere in there. He got the second one. And then he sits down till 10 minutes to go in the second quarter, and then he finishes it up.
That makes sense to me. So,
yeah.
All right, Terry, let's take a break here. When we come back, we are going to get into the Guardians, and we're going to play a game called, what are we going to call it? Is this real or not?
Real or not?
Is it real? It's like our own reality show on the podcast.
Okay.
So, all right, I'll be right back on Terry's Talkin'.
Hey guys, if you love college football, we think you'll like the College Football Survivor Show. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and my co-host Shahan Jeharaja and I, each week we talk about the best programs, best coaches, best players in the sport. It's all football, no off-field stuff, no legislation. It's about the teams that are going to matter most in the playoff race. Will Georgia three-peat? Always on the lookout for angry Bama. The Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan battling at the top, and Penn State on the rise. The Pac-12 matters again, not just USC, but Oregon and Washington as well. The playoff is expanding. Expand your podcast listening. Try the College Football Survivor Show wherever you find podcasts.
We are back on Terry's Talkin'. David Campbell and Terry Pluto. We're going to get into some Guardians here, Terry. All right, so we're going to call this, is it real? Is that what we're doing? Real or not?
Yeah, real or not.
Okay.
And we're not going to go through the whole roster we're just going to do primarily hitters because pitchers have had so few innings. Well, some of these guys have had 40 or 50 at-bats. And I'm going to ask you, David, Oscar Gonzalez, one of my favorites, is batting 132. We're not saying he's a 132 hitter, but Oscar's struggling. Is this real or not?
It's real right now. And
yeah.
We were talking last week, Terry, about does he need to go down to Columbus for a week or 3 and straighten some things out. I mean, he hit a ball really hard, I think, in his last at-bat in Washington.
Yeah, he hit a rocket to the first baseman, but the rest was pathetic.
But he's swinging at pitches, so many pitches out of the zone. We saw this when we were there for opening day, like from the get. His swing just has not looked crisp and tight. It seems like it's a little loopy, a little loose. I don't know. I'm not a hitting coach, but he doesn't look like he's swinging the way he was last year. What do you think? Real or not real?
Yeah, he's late on a lot of outside pitches. He used to hit pitches outside of the zone, would rip on the right center or whatever. But that one ball he finally did first baseman was like it. But I would be surprised. I mean, let's put it this way. I don't know, but I expect him to be sent to the minors by the end of the week, if not sooner. He needs to play all the time. All right, I'll throw another one out. Why not? Zunino, 313.
I think it's not real just because
Okay.
I can't see him sustaining that for the whole season. I think if he hits 280 or 283, that would be a really good year. I don't know, Terry, real or not real? What do you think?
Well, if you look at Zunino's career, no, he's not a 313 hitter. But the doubles, the home runs, he does have some power. So it's like half real. How's that?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, well, it shows that the good thing is he's a right-handed hitter. He had that thoracic, whatever, the Jurassic Park surgery. It's not quite that, but it's a bad one on his left shoulder. And if you're a right-handed hitter, your left arm, your left shoulder often carries a lot of the, the burden for power. And by the way, I was just wondering if maybe, I don't know why it would impact his ability to block balls in the dirt, that surgery with the left arm, but maybe it does. I don't know. I had a stat over the weekend where they had allowed 13 pitches and wild pitches their first 12 games. By far the most in the majors. They only allowed 49 all of last year. So it wasn't like suddenly everybody's just bouncing the ball over the place and throwing it to the backstop. So anyway, that was that. All right, here's another one for you.
I get to ask the next one. You take this one.
Go. Okay. What is yours?
All right, I was going to say Josh Bell. 190. And he's got an on-base percentage of 304. Real or not real?
Not real. I mean, we'll see if he could end up, in that area. The problem is Josh Bell, and I'm going to look it up, when he has a slump, he doesn't just have a little bit of a dip. He has a Grand Canyon. And you look at the 53 games he hit in San Diego at the end of the year, and his batting average is 192 in those games with a 587 OPS. But that came after he batted 301 in 103 games at Washington. He likes that ballpark. So we'll have to see how that goes. But when he's not hitting, I mean, he looks horrible, but you could just see the strength there. But I also could see now why this is not a guy that you could think is going to, hit a consistent 280 with 30 homers. And there's just too many holes in his swing. But it would be nice to have a guy that where he can get hot for a couple of weeks and carry the team.
Yeah, well, he started that over the weekend, didn't he? In the 3 games in Washington, 6 hits. I think he had 4 doubles and a few ribbies and a home run. So he might be turning around. And
you look back at his career, Dave, in 2019, and this is the bell that you would love to see. 2019 is 277 with 37 homers, 116 RBIs, OPS of 936. It's interesting. He doesn't strike out a ton, but he has those. It's almost like now those Oscar Gonzalez really bad at bats, just slow rollers and things like that. So we'll see. Okay, so whose turn is it? Because I'm old.
You do one and I'll do one. How about that?
All right, Miles Straw, 333.
I think that's real.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him be more aggressive. He seems like he's putting more contact on the ball. I think he's got 9 walks and 12 strikeouts. And he just seems like he's more in command of his offensive game this year, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, 333, no. But can he be the guy that hit 285 after he got traded to Cleveland in 2021? A guy who has a career 305 average in the minors in nearly 500 games. Yeah, why not? So he's starting to bunt more, and he is really good athletically. So I wouldn't say 333, but 275, 280 with stolen bases and the defense and everything else. Because that was one of the reasons I defended him in the past was, the things that Terry Francona talks about. Well, the guy's baseball card. What does it tell you? And he went through the minors. Now, in the minors, I will say he played in some places that were really good to hit, like the Texas League, Round Rock. He played a lot in Texas because he's in the Houston chain, and that's hot weather, hard ground, and so on. You kind of look at where some of these minor league things were played. Like I remember the Dodgers would have all these guys that would play in Albuquerque, which was a hitter's paradise in the old days, and they would rack up these stats, and the Dodgers just knew they were not real, and they would trade some of these guys for better players based on that. But the fact that Miles hit 285 after coming to Cleveland, and he was hitting 262 at the time when the Astros traded him here, I think it's pretty real. Could be better.
All right, I got one last one for you.
All right.
Josh Naylor.
Yep.
Batting 173 with a 250 on-base percentage and a 288 slugging percentage. Ugh. Real or not real? Is this what we're going to see from him this year?
It better not be real, or this is going to be a very long year. And I actually went and kind of looked at that because I thought, well, maybe some of that, they faced a lot of lefties because Josh was bad against lefties. But he's only 0 for 11 against lefties. 9 for 41 against right-handers. His plate discipline is really bad right now. I don't know how many walks he has, but there was I can't remember if it was yesterday or the other day, he came up, but the pitcher throwing 7 straight balls, and of course he swings at the first pitch and fouls it off, and he just seems to be in an emotional funk. And so I hope that's not real, because I thought this would be a year he hits 25 to 30 homers. But he's still a younger guy, and he is coming off that major leg injury from 2 years ago, and that's why I think maybe we were hoping for more here. But he seems very excitable at the plate right now, and of course he seems excitable just about most things in life. Yeah. Right. So
he does have 6 walks and 9 strikeouts, Terry.
Yeah. So he's. I'm looking at. His career time in Cleveland, which now covers, this is going into the season, covers 213 games. He's a 250 hitter with 731 OPS. So that's some numbers on the baseball card there. But he's a key guy, because if he's not hitting, they don't have a lot. This is a guy, I'll say real or not, and I'll just answer it. Brennan hitting 286, yes, it's real. He's just a good all-around hitter. You're not going to get a ton of power out of him, but he's a good hitter.
All right. Anybody else you wanted to mention real quick? Real or not real? And all right, I think we covered most of the starting. Yeah,
Jose and those guys. I think fans know the Rosario never hits till it's May anyway, so let's not worry about that. And
cool. Well, the Guardians got rained out in Detroit today, and it sounds like they're gonna. This is really weird, Terry. They had a 6:10 game, I think, tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. And they're going to move it. They're going to move Tuesday night's game and make it part of a back-to-back doubleheader tomorrow, starting around 1. Mm-hmm. So anybody who had tickets to that evening game tomorrow night, the game basically got moved up by 2 hours, which is, I thought they might split that, but they're doing a natural doubleheader. So,
well, they probably figured you can go to either game, and my guess is they're not selling a ton of tickets right now in Detroit anyway.
Yeah, probably true. So, all right, Terry, we got a few minutes here to talk some Browns.
All right.
I never thought I was going to ask you this question, but let me build up to it first. So today we find out that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are signing a 5-year record-breaking extension worth $255 million. It's an NFL high $51 million a season. Deshaun Watson of the Browns has now moved down to number 5 in yearly average salary at $46 million. Do you want to take a crack at the top 5, or do you want me to just read them? Jalen Hurts, number 1. Deshaun Watson, number 5. Who's in between?
Oh, you're talking average salary per year.
For 2023, yep.
Yeah, Rodgers is ahead of him.
Aaron Rodgers at 50.3, you're right.
And I'm trying to think who else did it. Is Josh Allen up there now?
Nope. Russell Wilson of the Broncos is at 48.5. He's number 3. And then I wouldn't have gotten this one. Kyler Murray of the Cardinals at 46.1.
Yeah, but to me, the average salary per year, I mean, we all wish we could have those, but the real number is guaranteed money.
And so we all know about Deshaun Watson's $230 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
This contract for Jalen Hurts is $179 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So Terry, with Watson's contract being overshadowed by some of these other guys, did they get a bargain when they signed Deshaun Watson for what they signed him for?
No.
Or is that a ridiculous question?
It's a ridiculous question. No, he still got the highest guaranteed number, because that's what, when you're really stuck with the guy, if he doesn't turn out, that's a problem. The other thing is, Hurts was their guy already. They didn't trade 6 draft choices for him. See, remember, the cost of Watson is factored into the fact that you had to trade for him first, give up assets, tie up cap space. These other contracts, Patrick, by the way, the reason that is $230 million for an average of 46 at the time for $46 million a year for Watson was because Patrick Mahomes was averaging $45 million, and I'm his agent. I got to get $1 million more per year. It looks good on my resume. That is a fact. That's the kind of stuff they do. And the real thing is a guaranteed number. Secondly, Hurts took his team to the Super Bowl. And
that is true.
That's the bottom line. There's 2 things: the guaranteed dollars and the results on the field. Now, we will see what Deshaun does, but when you add up the cost of Deshaun Watson, to ignore all the draft capital involved in that trade is missing part of the equation.
All valid points, Terry. I tell you, when I was a kid, I remember the Lakers signed Magic Johnson to a 25-year contract at $1 million a year.
Yep.
Do you remember this?
I know the agent who did it.
And people were like, oh my God, that's crazy money. And why would they do it for so long? And like the longer it went on, the cheaper it became. And like how ridiculous was it by the end? Like
Right.
$1 million was nothing. So like I'm just trying to project forward like 2 or 3 years. And let's say that the Browns' dreams come true and they go deep into the playoffs or make the Super Bowl this year or next. And $46 million might be the number 10 contract.
Well, of course,
yeah. So,
you win the Super Bowl, then it's like name your price.
Right.
Or even go there. That contract was done by a guy named George Andrews. Magic Johnson's was. And Magic's idea at that point was he wanted this, it's like this perpetual $1 million a year, which seemed like a staggering amount of time where guys are making about $100,000 back then. And for the family, for grandchildren, for everybody coming in. He also represented Brad Daugherty, by the way, and helped Brad get that. Now, within 3 years, they renegotiated Magic's thing. But I remember that George Andrews was a really good friend of mine, and he used to explain to me that even he knew that when you really looked at that contract over all that time, there was no way it was ever just going to stay in place for 25 years. But it was kind of a groundbreaking thing. It was good for his business. Magic wanted it, and he knew, assuming Magic stayed healthy, they would be able to work it. And if Magic had a cataclysmic injury, he's worth $25 million over that long. It's one of these deals where we go back on pitchers. Like, I am amazed when these pitchers turn down a chance to sign extensions. I forgot whether it was $38 million or $42 million guaranteed that they offered for over 3 or 4 years to. I think it was 4 years to Clevenger with a chance to make even more, and he turned it down. He already had one Tommy John surgery. Of course, what happens? That was the other reason they traded him. Was he turned down the contract? Then he was kind of acting, off the rails there during the COVID year. And then, of course, what happens? He blows that elbow again. And he's been signing a 1-year contract since. So these guys, you kind of factor in, granted, I switched sports on everybody, but pitchers are there. Or if a player has a sincere fear of injury, I know one thing that's also come into play with Jose Ramirez. He's sitting there going, let me see, I'm going to get $20 million a year for the next 7 years. And, what if, everything's all set up in the Dominican and this, and I like it. Nobody bothers me here. I'll take it. And frankly, in 3 or 4 years, if he's hitting 40 home runs a year, they could probably rework it somehow.
Well, I don't have to tell you this, Terry, but like the Deshaun Watson, will it be the worst decision in franchise history or not, is the number one narrative in
Sure.
Cleveland sports over the next few years. And so I would love to have this discussion a couple of years from now and see if where Deshaun's on that list and kind of what we think about.
This is one that I hope I'm really wrong about, because I've had bad feelings from day one.
And you've been on the record, and so the Browns fans deserve
because
a
if
winner.
if I'm really wrong, this will take years and years to dig out. So, because one thing, he will not be bad enough where they're going to go get the first, second, or third pick in the draft. This would be a guy that just struggles, and they're going 8-9 or 9-8, and that's not good enough.
All right.
Okay.
Well, the Browns are getting back to off-season workouts this week, and so we'll be following that. And of course, the draft is a week from Thursday, and Browns fans will not be watching their team make a pick on Thursday night for round one, but they'll have picks the rest of the way. So we'll be tracking all that. So, all right, Terry, there was some bad hosting last week. I completely have realized that I did not mention the email to send in questions last week. So I'm going to do it right now so I don't forget. So if you want to send us comments, questions, good jokes, we'll see if we can get them on the podcast. Just email us at sports@cleveland.com. Again, that's sports@cleveland.com. And we will try to get it on next week's podcast. So speaking of which, we do have a couple of questions, Terry. You brought up magnet schedules last week because they were giving out magnet schedules at the home opener. And Ben in Rocky River says, "Hi, Dave and Terry, big fan of the podcast. On your last episode, you were discussing magnet schedules, and I also collect both magnet and pocket schedules. Believe it or not, there is a rather small but passionate group of us. I have every Indians or Guardians pocket schedule dating back to 1967. And I'm very glad they're still making them. Unfortunately, many teams across all sports are going digital with things like schedules, tickets, and even now many teams don't offer free programs. Instead, fans are invited to scan a QR code shown somewhere in the stadium to access the game program. I guess that's the times we live in now, but it's unfortunate that many of these small, fun, and inexpensive pieces of memorabilia are going by the wayside." And again, that's Ben in Rocky River. Thanks for that, Ben. So I know you we talked last week. Roberta loves to collect the magnet schedules. Is how we kind of got on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We should see if you're listening out there and you have some kind of sports related collection thing, we'd love to hear about it. I think this is really interesting. So Ben says he's got pocket schedules dating back to 1967. Those would be really cool to look through, just in terms of the artwork. Anything you collect, Terry, in sports?
No.
Sports related?
No,
not really.
But no. Maybe it's one of those things I'm in sports, so I don't. I do have a couple things I saved from people. Like I got it from the Fred McCall's family. He sent out a bunch of media people. Fred had 1 million ties, and after he passed his way, his family sent out one, and I have one of those. I have a Joe Tate bobblehead because he is a close friend of mine. I have a Rule Be Free bobblehead. So that's really about it, but I don't particularly collect a lot, just kind of things. And I got a John Adams pin, so that they're going to be giving away later on. I'm keeping that. So I don't really have too much of anything there.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I just kind of get random things here and there. I have a signed Walter Payton Sports Illustrated that I got along the way, and ticket stubs, which are kind of going the way of the dodo also. So, which is kind of sad. But anyway, send us if you have anything you collect that's kind of interesting, sports related. Send it to us at sports@cleveland.com. We'll try and talk about that on the podcast next week. So, all right, and we got one more here. This is from Chris in Denver. And he says, "Hey, Dave and Terry, I have a follow-up question to what I asked last year about the Guardians name change. Now that we're in year 2, what are you hearing from your readers on the name change? Are Clevelanders accepting the new name, or is there still a level of outrage that the team moved away from the Indians? Thanks, Chris in Denver." So I haven't been hearing much at all, Terry. I think people have moved on, right?
There's still some people who don't like it, but I mean, there's sort of the people that's the Dolans are cheap. They lied to us. Now they changed the name, that kind of stuff. What really did help them was last year playing well. I just think, that. And the fact that the team isn't sitting there playing the wardrobe police. They don't care what you wear to the game. So they played that way. I just don't think it's for some people it'll be a huge deal forever, and for others they're more in the camp of I am, that I grew up in this town when this team could have left several times, and that is not an exaggeration at all. And it's still, people don't want to hear it, but Cleveland is still the smallest market with teams in the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. And I had people who were top executives that say one day they could easily lose the baseball team because of it's the hardest to support, over 162 games. And when you're talking about corporate things, and the fact that for all the complaining about the Dolans, you got two things. One is they got a strong organization where the top people want to work there. And number two, they don't want to move it. They don't want to have that as their legacy. So Guardians, Indians, my goodness, the script is, I'm old, my eyes are bad. Sometimes you look at that, you don't even know what it says on the
Well,
uniform. Seriously.
No, really. Your point about the playoffs last year, though, Terry, is so important. When I saw this question today, the first thing I thought of was Tom Hamilton's eloquent, beautiful sign-off the last day of the season that they were the Indians. And one of the things he says was, you're going to come to the ballpark with your kids and your parents and your brothers and sisters, and you're going to make new memories with a new team, and it's going to be just as memorable. And that's what last fall was.
Mm-hmm.
There was new memories made, and I really do think that helped kind of put
and
that
Tom
in
went
for
through a number
people.
of those things, where the team might move and he could lose his job. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Now, he came right after Dick Jacobs had bought the team, so that really alleviated a lot of that. But he had heard enough of those stories from Herb Score and others. I mean, when Peter Bavasi was here, I mean, that thing was just about it. And they were so smart, they thought it was a good idea to move it to Tampa Bay or St. Petersburg. Let's find even a worse market.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that question. And again, so I don't screw it up this week, send us anything you want to say at sports@cleveland.com. Put Terry's Talkin in the subject line, and we'll try to get it on next week's podcast. So, all right, Terry, I think we're almost done here. I have been asking you every week for a book recommendation. You're a prolific reader as well as a prolific writer. What are you reading these days?
All right, I just finished this book. It's called The Making of Hoosiers, the movie Hoosiers. It's a book about the making of it. It's written by Gayle, Gayle Johnson. The Making of Hoosiers by Gayle Johnson. First of all, I love the movie Hoosiers, and I've seen it far too many times because it seems like it just pops up all over the place. But there's some cool stuff in there, like Gene Hackman in the middle of it is having beers with Dennis Hopper, and Hackman is very discouraged by the whole movie. This is going to be, it's going to kill our careers, Dennis. It's going to kill us. This thing's awful. Name one basketball movie that ever made a dime. I don't know why I took it. And apparently Hackman was like great with all the extras, and they mostly had small college and junior college basketball players in this cast. He was rough on the director. He fought him on everything. And it was a younger guy named David Onspaw who basically cut his heels on a thing called Hill Street Blues. And they were sitting there, and this was the Onspaw and a guy named Angelo Pizzo. They were classmates at the University of Indiana. This is their dream thing, to have this. And Hackman took it, and later he confessed, I don't know why I took it. I needed the money. And on top of that, he was very worried about doing well because his contract called not for 10% of the net profits, 10% of the gross. So he just thought nobody was going to see this. Of course, it turned out to be very good for him because, it keeps being recycled. Hopper, meanwhile, thought this was a great movie. He loved it. He was just finally got sober, and he got to play a drunken guy who was coming off, and he just was glad somebody wanted him. Then the other key person in there is Barbara Hershey, who's his teacher. And I guess they did all these scenes with her and Hackman and this, and they all got cut. There was more family scenes, Indiana farm scenes. So she didn't like the movie at all after it came out. Hackman admitted he's still amazed how good it came out. Hopper said, I told you everybody along this was going to be a great movie. But there's a lot of things in the scenes they shot, and they really, if you watch it, it was on the other night, which made me go back to this book, which I read about a year ago, and look at some stuff. They run a lot of the old-fashioned plays around the 50s and this. And granted, this is a slice of rural America basketball from the 1950s. This is not, what you would see there, and was based on this Milan team from Indiana. Although the two guys who, Anspa and Pizzo, the director and the scriptwriter, they admit they based it kind of a mild Bob Knight was Hackman. And so there's a lot of neat things in there. Also, when you read a book like this, you find out, you go, how do they ever make a movie? It just sounds like incredible. A disaster. And they kept having rain every day. They wanted to shoot all these scenes outside. It just kept raining. And but when you look, in fact, if you look at that, there's a lot of scenes where they shot like the farms and the bright sky, but it's always gray and gloomy. And that's because the weather wouldn't cooperate.
Yeah, it's funny you say about that. I've been watching this show on Paramount Plus, Terry, called The Offer, and it's about the making of The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, you talk about movies that it's amazing they ever got made. That one, Paramount wasn't going to make it if they were going to bring in like Al Pacino to do Michael Corleone. Like the head of Paramount was like, we're not making the movie. He's too short and he has no star power. But and then there was all this Italian pushback about it's going to do that, and they were protesting against the movie. And it's like, so I've been watching that, and I've also been reading a book that I got for Christmas from Francis Ford Coppola. It's basically his notebook that he used to make the movie. So it's funny to see kind of the two play off of each other. But yeah, with all the production and the weather and all, it's amazing anything ever gets made.
So it's always funny who wanted. Apparently, Nicholson wanted the part of Hackman's, but he had some other commitment and couldn't get out of it, and he always regretted not getting that part. That would have been interesting. How about Nicholson?
Oh yeah,
in that part,
huge basketball fan.
Yeah, and also that. Barbara Hershey's just like, I don't know why I took this. They all lied to me, that kind of thing. But because basically the script that she saw, that's not what they shot, and you would never know watching it. I mean, people are all pros. And Hopper just thought this was a grand old time. So he got to be in Indiana and just thought this was terrific. Those guys went on to make the movie Rudy, which did well. And then they didn't do much after that. A couple movies that hit and miss and that didn't do much, and they teach at the University of Indiana. They were the two guys that spent a lot of time with Gail Johnson. I'm not sure how much they got from the other stars. And then there's a lot about who some of the kids were that were the basketball players. So it's a fun book. You can get it on Amazon. I went to check, and have at it. And by the way, it's worth, if you're driving to Indianapolis off the interstate there from here, Knightstown, Indiana is where they shot it. And the Hoosiers gym is there. I went there and I wrote a little thing a few years ago. And then now they have like 50 to 100 basketball games that your different high schools come in and play in this little gym. It's very cool.
Oh, sweet. It's kind of like Cooperstown, where they have people come by and play in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there's a picture up there. But it's a fictional thing, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, those guys, they made Hoosiers and Rudy and called it. If you do that, you can pretty much, you've accomplished your life's
rest of your life. Yeah. And
just take the rest of your life off.
Yep.
All right, Terry, thanks for making time today, everybody. Enjoy basketball this week, and we will talk to you next week on Terry's Talkin'.